G'day little mates, name's Crocodile Dundee. Mr. Miller, a good mate of mine, asked me to come in and teach you little tykes about a little bit about natural selection. Great guy, that Mr. Miller. Remember him wrestling an alligator underneath the water. Down for 5 minutes he was. Came back up. Alligator didn't come back up. I'm a perfect person to talk about natural selection. Being in an island like Australia, you can see lots of examples of natural selection at work. Animals here have changed over thousands of years. Got all these crazy creatures like platypus, even strange actors exported to the United States. Thousands of years humans have controlled changes in different species. Wide variety of breeds comes from humans carefully crossing dogs with desired traits to make the traits more distinct. Crikey, what happened to my accent? You should know I spent some time in the States, sometimes over in Mother England, so accent sort of goes in and out of there a little bit. These here dogs, they've been started off as one single wild dog, scientists think. That dog was chosen, certain dogs were chosen for their large ears, better ability to sense smell, wrinkles as the case may be, mated with other dogs with the same type of characteristics. They produced dogs that could smell better, dogs with more wrinkly skin. And again, they were mated with only the wrinkly skins and only the dogs that could smell better. Till eventually they got these type of tykes. Dogs like these. Bloodhounds that can smell. Wrinkly dogs. Don't have any dogs like this in Australia. They'd be eaten for dinner. On the barbie. Selective breeding is what that's called. Humans do the same kind of selection with plants such as corn. You can see here, Native Americans. I think I've just got a southern accent all of a sudden. Crikey, look at this. Corn, scientists think, came from originally grasses. Then eventually those grasses with the greatest kernels crossed with other grasses till we ended up with what we got here today. Giant kernels, very different as you can see from these original kernels. Practice by which humans select plants or animals based on desired traits is called selective breeding, mate.
In the 1820s, surgery was a grisly affair. There was no anesthesia.
Crikey.
Young medical students were forced to watch and learn. The young man who walked out that day was Charles Darwin. The ordeal of the operating room was too much for him. Over his father's objections, he quit medical school to pursue his dream of becoming a naturalist. Darwin was hired as a naturalist aboard the British Admiralty's HMS Beagle, which embarked on an expedition to survey and map coastal waters around the world. The Beagle was at sea for 5 years. To Darwin, it seemed an eternity. He shared a small cabin with the captain, with whom he had several disagreements, including the story of creation. While the captain held to the Bible's account of creation, Darwin believed that the earth had changed slowly over millions of years. It was a debate that would follow Darwin for the rest of his life. The British government paid for this?
No, actually, Darwin's father paid for his voyage. and also paid for an assistant to come with Darwin and help him skin the specimens and prepare the crates for shipment. He worked in a little poop deck where he had all his specimens, just about something like this.
The Beagle made stopovers in ports from Australia to South America, including 36 days in the Galapagos Islands. And Darwin made the most of it. He recorded extensive observations about the indigenous plants and wildlife. He collected and preserved thousands of specimens for study. For years after the voyage, Darwin would recall the observations he made while aboard the Beagle.
It was not until 1837, a couple of years after he returned from the Galapagos, that he opened his first species notebook. And he asked himself the question, very ambitious question for a man in his late 20s. What are the laws of life?
Is this Darwin's whole point?
It was Darwin's whole point, to try to find laws operating in the natural world similar to the laws that physicists and chemists had found in inorganic nature.
Darwin's search to understand the laws of nature took shape as he studied the animals on the Galapagos Islands. Of special interest to him were the physical differences within a certain species. For example, the finches on the Galapagos had different shaped beaks. They varied according to the environments where the finches lived. Some had beaks that were hard and blunt, ideal for hammering open crab shells. Others had beaks that were more tapered and suited for hunting and pecking among rocks. The difference was puzzling. As Darwin analyzed it, he began thinking about how the struggle to survive was the driving force behind all life. If the species is to thrive in its environment, it has to evolve or perish. With this simple yet powerful insight, history was made. Darwin discovered the mechanism that made evolution work, the process of natural selection. Darwin wasn't the first guy really to come up with this, right? What was his special or particular insight?
He was the first to...
Crikey, wasn't that something? One thing that Darwin knew from his reading and researching was that the populations are limited by starvation, competition, disease, and predation. Only a limited number of these little guys survive and reproduce. They gotta have traits help them survive in that environment. Some of these traits, Darwin figured, be passed on to the offspring. Let's go ahead and look about what Darwin was thinking about.
Charles Darwin traveled the world as a naturalist, making observations that helped him form his ideas about evolution. For example, in the Galapagos Islands, he found different species of finches. Each had a different bill for eating different foods, but the species were so similar that they must have shared a recent common ancestor.
Hey, you little tykes, make sure you're taking notes on this.
Darwin formulated a theory with two parts. The first part states that newer species, like the finches Darwin found, are modified descendants of older species, like the finch's common ancestor. The second part states that organisms that are best adapted to their environment are more likely to survive and reproduce. In an area with only nuts to eat, a large ground finch will find food and a warbler finch will not, because the warbler finch's beak is not made for cracking nuts. In this case, the large ground finch is more likely than the warbler finch to survive and reproduce, passing its traits to its offspring.
Crikey, that Sheila sounded like a robot, didn't she? She's got some good information, though. Hope you're taking notes. Adaptations. The shapes of different finches' beaks were adapted to the way each finch gets its food. For instance, a large beak, this here ground finch, ready to crack open the seeds. This here cactus finch has a different type of beak, ready for tearing apart cactuses. The warbler finch, crikey, look at that beak, ready to pointy to get into those cracks and get those there bugs, little crickets. Don't forget to take notes on all this stuff here.
These finches have all descended from a common ancestor. They look different because they have adapted to different environments and food sources. The large ground finch has a heavy, strong beak adapted for cracking big, hard seeds. The cactus finch has a tough beak that acts like a pair of needle-nosed pliers. It is adapted for eating cactus and its nectar. The warbler finch's small, pointed beak works like a pair of tweezers. It is adapted for probing into cracks and crevices to obtain insects for food. The different beak sizes of these finches are traits that make each finch better able to survive in its environment. Thus, the beak size of each finch is an adaptive advantage.
She's got a point, mate. Darwin would explain natural selection. Natural selection to Darwin is a mechanism, process by which organisms are better adapted to their environment, survive, and then they go on and reproduce. They get to have little kids because they have the better adaptations. Process of natural selection has 4 steps. We've got overproduction. All species tend to produce too many offspring. Out in wild, this here tarantula produces 500 to 1,000 eggs. Right, inherited variation. In other words, look at these two here. They got a little bit different. What this picture is trying to tell you is there's different variations between any sort of organism. These here tarantulas, one might be stronger than the other, might have a variation, might be able to fight off competition. They're not all the same, they ain't clones. These differences we know are from genetics. You types learned about genetics. Mr. Miller in his heredity unit. Then there's a struggle to survive in the environment. For instance, this here wasp is a tarantula killer. Some tarantulas can fight them off. Some might avoid the poison or have something that helps them survive. Those ones that survive go on to reproduce and get these little tarantula tykes. Pass on that trait, whatever helped them survive. They survive, then they get to reproduce more, and they get all of the tarantulas in that area have that ability to fend off and fight off these guys. So only the best traits get passed on. They get to have more offspring and pass on those better traits again and again. It's how these guys get adapted to their environment. We got plenty of tarantulas over there in Australia here. Oh, if they don't, that's the end of them. They end up extinct, like this here dodo. Lived on an island, didn't have any adaptations, didn't need them. No predators on that island. Nothing, no dogs going after them, no humans throwing them on the body. Then along came dogs and humans. It wasn't ready, couldn't fly.
Traveling in a freighter combi on a hippie trailhead full of zombies. I met a strange lady, she made me nervous. She took me in and gave me breakfast. And she said, do you come from a land down under, where women go and men wonder? Can't you hear the thunder? You better run, you better take cover. so